Time to talk some NBA, and it's not even the second half of the season. There's really only like 20-ish games or so left for most of these teams. Our focus will shift from the NFL to the NBA, but we've got the same sharp handicapper, our good friend, the man that you hear on That's What G Said each and every week, Eric from ETOF21 Sports. Hey, buddy, kind of a disappointing, it feels so different with the All-Star weekend than it used to. Like, I used to get excited as a kid to watch the All-Star game and some of the festivities, and I just could not care about it at all, these last couple years.
I mean, I think that's more with us just being older.
Yeah.
Like when we're a kid, we're
It was
young
cool.
and naive. Now we kind of know what's going on. I really feel, though, that the basketball game itself is just a complete embarrassment.
It's bad. And honestly, it's kind of tough because like all these guys get hurt so much in the last couple of years. So many of the big stars have gotten hurt. You can understand why they don't want to go out there and crank it up to 100. What incentive is there for them at this point now? And it's not like the guys used to have a little bit more pride too. And I think because players didn't change teams quite as much, the East versus the West kind of meant something, right? Some of those guys when they would match up. Now there's no real East versus West. The players all get drafted. I just don't think there's a whole lot of care about it overall, honestly.
I agree 100%. It's just kind of like people are there. Maybe the skills competition, 3-on-3, something like that. Maybe do something.
Yeah, I kind of like a 3-on-3, maybe. Yeah, something different, but got to have some different ideas moving forward because that was broken. We won't talk a whole lot about that, but we will talk about most of the teams in the NBA as we get ready for this final third of the season or so. Let's start with the Eastern Conference, Eric, and let's go through just from the top down as we look at the NBA standings right here up at NBA.com. We have the Celtics up top. Tatum scored 55 in the All-Star game, broke that record, and they have now named Joe Mazzulla the permanent head coach. And this is just a very good basketball team, right? They are, I think, the only team in the league top 5 in offensive rating and defensive rating. They're 3rd in offensive rating, 4th in defensive rating. They're very good. I feel like I'll probably have the same exact questions with them that I had last year come playoff time. Are they big enough and deep enough to bang with a team like the Bucks if the Bucks are healthy and maybe throw enough bodies at a guy like Embiid if he's healthy? They'll have Robert Williams, but not much other than that as far as bigs. No real knocks on them overall as a team. Tatum continues to get better. He is a legitimate MVP candidate, and he can carry this team in any game, in any quarter, and go one-on-one with anyone. I mean, not a whole lot of knocks on them. I don't know if they're the best team in the league like the record may suggest. And come playoff time in a series, I would probably pick 2 or 3 teams ahead of them.
My issue with them is we saw when Smart went down, their offense kind of struggled a little bit with everything going on. As someone that lived through Brogdon in the Bucks choke when they're up 2-0 in the conference finals against the Raptors, it's really hard to trust him in some pressure situations. I'm still not the biggest Grant Williams guy. Al Horford is a whole year older, Father Time is undefeated. They do have a little bit of questions, but if Tatum plays the level he's playing at, could he put this team on his back with the pieces that they have? Yes, but I don't think they're as good as their record indicates.
Yep.
I really feel that the Bucks are kind of trying to, like you said, trying to stay healthy, keep everyone healthy. Obviously, we don't know what's going on with this wrist thing with Giannis, but if you just kind of sit back and think about it out loud, when is the next time the Bucks are going to play a meaningful basketball game? Probably the second round of the playoffs. What is that? The last week in April, first week in May?
Yeah. And,
you know what I mean?
The Bucks right now, they've won 12 in a row.
He's going to have a ton of time to get ready and get healthy, so I'm not really worried about that. I think
and you have Middleton's back now, so he can take a little bit, and he's starting to look a little more like Middleton. He can take a little bit of the offensive load from Giannis even now. Middleton, he's played 10 of the last 12 games. The most he's played is 24 minutes, but they're starting to ramp him back up. He's averaged over 15 points, 3.6 assists, 4.7 rebounds during that stretch. He's not shooting all that well from 3 quite yet. just 31% on 4 attempts per game. But the last 6 games, he's improved overall. He's up to 18 plus points per game, 6 rebounds, 3.5 for assists. Still not shooting great from 3, except for the night against the Lakers. He does, but of course I always point that out. And then Brook is playing well. He had a monster game the other night. So I have the least amount of worries, I think, with a healthy Bucks team, and they feel like they're starting to get healthy, because I'm not really worried about the Giannis wrist stuff. I'm really not.
I'm not, just because there's so much time. I think getting Crowder was big for them, just because I'm not great. I had no knock against Grayson Allen. You make it to this level of basketball, you're a phenomenal player. But he's really limited defensively with what.
And he's so up and down.
And
he's so up and down.
And his release point on his jump shot is just so low, it's easy to block, and his release isn't that quick. So I really think Ingles getting healthy, coming back more into the rotation, getting Crowder, that is kind of not less Grayson Allen for them moving forward is a good thing. One of the things that's kind of being underreported is they almost hit a home run during the trade market. They almost got Toronto to trade Van Vliet to them.
Yeah.
While keeping Middleton and Holiday. I mean, could you imagine that team with Holiday, Van Vliet, Middleton and Giannis?
And Van Vliet can run the second unit, really run that whole second unit. He can take care of a lot more offense, and you have the defense and the length with the rest of the guys on the floor to make up for him. That would have been a very nice fit for him. We'll talk about Toronto in a little bit, because they didn't end up doing anything. Actually, they ended up bringing in Pirtle, who was the guy that you actually talked about. He was a really good advanced metrics guy. So now a lot of strengths. I guess one of the weaknesses that they've had so far this season, I guess a couple, like their half-court offense has been a little bit stagnant, and their net ratings in the second quarter aren't good. And I think that just has to do with the depth so far, because they've been banged up. Now I think some of those ratings they won't be as bad, because if you have a guy like Middleton there to sort of help on the second unit, you can spread Giannis out a little bit. You're always going to have a legitimate all-star with the ball in their hands now.
Yep. 100%.
So some of their weaknesses, I think, won't be as as strong weaknesses with everybody back now. They're going to be legit, and they're going to be tough to beat at the top of the East. You had pointed out, Eric, when we talked a few weeks ago, that you sort of liked the way Embiid was playing this year, and sort of liked the way he was handling his business. And the 76ers are 26-7 in their last 33. They've won 4 in a row. They're the number 3 seed. They're only 3 games back, so they actually could get to the number 1 spot. It wouldn't be that crazy for them. The one thing I didn't like, though, and Embiid said the other day, I'm not healthy. I haven't been healthy for the last couple of weeks. So the one thing that bothers me about that, he plays 28 minutes and takes 19 shots in the All-Star game. Look at what LeBron did. He played 14 minutes. Look at what Giannis did. He played 1 minute. If you know what the really important thing for you is to win a championship and to be healthy at the end of the year, I don't know if I wanted him out there for almost 30 minutes taking 20 shots when he's not healthy. I would have preferred him doing what LeBron and Giannis did, go out, make your appearance, and then let some of the other guys shine. Overall, though, this team just they feel better than they were last year. I don't know if I'm going to trust Doc Rivers and Harden when it comes down to a clutch situation. There's already been rumors about Harden going back to Houston, but I feel better about them now than I did a year ago. It's just, do they still have a ceiling with Doc and with Harden here? You know, can Embiid carry the load for them and beat a team that they're not supposed to beat because he averages 35 in the series, or 40 points or something like that?
If Embiid can keep his mouth shut and play focused, and the way he has the last part of the season, I think they can make a run. Excuse me. The thing with them is this. I think it's impeccable that they get to the 1 line, because I don't see them being able to beat Milwaukee and
Boston back to back.
One
of the two, maybe, but not. That would be a tough 13 14 games, right? In like 2 long series where you got to be ready to bang. And I agree with you. If they could get the right road, I could see it happening. But Philly playing some good ball, currently in the 3 seed.
So with that being said, I'm on one. Am I allowed to say a sports book or not?
Please do.
I'm looking at DraftKings right now. So based on what you and I just said, and we both agree with the statement that Philadelphia needs to be the 1 seed to come out of the Eastern Conference, which is still feasible. They're only two behind the Celtics in the loss column. Looking at it right now, they're plus 550 to win the East, but to be the 1 seed in the East, they're 20-1. Why? You know what I mean? Like, if you think Philly's going to come out of the East,
and like you said, I don't think Milwaukee cares.
Yeah,
I don't think Milwaukee cares about getting a 1. I think they're fine with being a top 4 team, getting a home field court advantage, and that's fine. Like, Milwaukee's not scared of anyone. And Boston, they've actually said that they're going to force Tatum to miss some games down the stretch because they want him to be healthy. So any back-to-backs, they're going to try to sit him out and limit his minutes a bit. So if Boston ends up losing 1 or 2 games because of that, if Milwaukee says, hey, let's hold Giannis out of a game or 2 here just for the same thing now. We got Middleton back. So maybe those top 2 teams lose 1 or 2 more games than we would have expected. And Philly decides, like you said, hey, we don't want to put ourselves in the situation where we got to be in 2 complete brawls. I think they're the value right now.
And excuse me. I mean, it's looking at their schedule. It is kind of doable. They got some. No, I take that back. They kind of do have a tough schedule. Looking at it right now: Memphis, Boston, Miami, Dallas, Indy. Really, the only team that I see them playing that probably is going to be eliminated by the time they come around there is Chicago. So, I mean, they do have a little bit of a tough schedule to close the season.
So that's Philly. As we continue along through the East, we're up to the number 4 seed, the Cleveland Cavs. Mitchell has 6 games of 40-plus points this year. In 50 games, he had 9 games of 40-plus points in 5 years in Utah. And one thing that you and I have mentioned a few times, and I don't know if enough people recall, he's 7th in career playoff scoring per game. He's a monster in the playoffs, Donovan Mitchell. He's averaged over 28 points per game come playoff time. So this is the type of team that you get in healthy and you have a legitimate closer on that team that has proven themselves. This team is 1st in defensive rating. They have the most double-digit wins in basketball. 26 of their 38 wins have come by 10 points or more. They just put teams away. Their clutch performance has been solid. They should be better though, based on some of the metrics. Donovan Mitchell's been okay late. The offense gets a little bit stagnant and there isn't a lot of ball movement. That's when they sort of struggle. But they're 2nd in nightly point differential, plus 5.7 per game. They're only behind the Celtics in point differential overall. So this has been a pretty good team. And I think they're probably right around where we had expected, Eric, when they made the trade and they made some of the big moves in the offseason. A good basketball team. I think sort of what you were saying about Philly, I think Cleveland, especially with a good series from Mitchell and Mobley's playing well, they're really well balanced. I think they could beat one of the 3 teams in front of them in the East, but I don't think they could beat 2 of them. Like, I don't think they're quite ready for that yet. Talk to us about the Cavs.
No, excuse me. Jeez. My thing is this. I just can't get over them losing to the Mavericks when basically Luka didn't play the first couple of games.
Yeah,
he was on a different team. And Mitchell, for his scoring record, is phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, but he's still only 17 and 22 in the playoffs. You know what I mean? So he doesn't really have that much of a history of winning in the playoffs. I'm a huge Garland fan. I really feel with him being there, it just takes the ball out of Garland's hands. Obviously, you have Jarrett Allen, phenomenal center, phenomenal piece. I think he's one of the best young players in the league. You have Mobley. They have been incredible size up front. They have Rubio, which gives you experience. I'm just not the biggest Donovan Mitchell guy in the playoffs because at the end of the day, I truly believe like you just are who you are. And we've seen this in the past from him where he's been in playoff situations where they should have won and he hasn't, and the team hasn't won. And that's just my issue.
And that's a fact. And my only counter for him would be maybe let's just give him one shot with a different squad in a different situation, because there was something weird with that Utah team. You know, I don't know, just the combination of him and Gobert and the staff. I think the coaching staff was very good, but they did, and maybe it's him. You're right. Maybe it has to do with the fact that he can score, but he's not incredible defensively.
He's awful defensively.
Oh, and I will, and he's been terrible in the past. This year, it's sort of like what you see with like some of the guys on the Lakers right now, like a D'Angelo Russell. Like if Mitchell just tries, that's more than he's done in most of his years. He's like been a sieve, like an absolute just Olay defense in the last few playoffs. If he can just throw his body in front of someone. So I don't think in terms
of if you take out, let's say you take out the series last year against the Mavericks.
I mean, how do you not? You got to win that series, though. Like you got to win that series.
In the past, like when the Clippers didn't have Kawhi and Terrence Mann came in and balled out of control, and the Clippers came back to beat them, and they had that insane record. So I mean, he has a track record.
They spit it out against Denver in the bubble. This thing happened in the bubble when they were up again 3-2, and they had those great back and forwards with him and Murray. So maybe with a few other guys on the roster now, maybe this is a better team and a better fit. But you're right. We have to point out the fact that while he's been good, he's been in some favorable situations, right? We pointed out 2 series where he was playing against hurt rosters and he should have been the best guy on the court. And while he was, his teams didn't win. So what will they do? I will say the team that if the playoffs started today, would play in round 1 would be the Brooklyn Nets. This team is so goofy, but they're kind of fun. They have just like a bunch of good role players, and you have Miles Bridges now, who's kind of become their default man. And he scored 45 last week. He scored 15 points in a row in that game and 17 points in the fourth quarter, which was just like,
I love Bridges. I mean,
he's awesome. And now he gets to play a role that he's not really been able to play. He was one of those guys that was like, I'll just do whatever you ask me to do. Some games I won't get many shots, and some games I'll just play great defense. And now he was like, what the hell? I'm in Brooklyn, but it's kind of exciting for him to go there. You know, you look on paper, Eric, Bridges, Dinwiddie, Cam Johnson, Finney Smith, Claxton, Cam Thomas, Joe Harris, Ben Simmons, Royce O'Neal, Seth Curry. That's 11 NBA rotation players.
Yeah, they got some dudes. And the thing that's interesting about them, and they're 4 games behind Cleveland, so I don't think they're going to be able to catch Cleveland.
Catch them.
But the mindset of an NBA player, you have to remember this is an 82-game season. You're going into Brooklyn to face Durant. Now, instead of that, you're going into Brooklyn to face Spencer Dinwiddie, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. Your mindset of a player isn't going to be what it would be if Durant was there. And that's going to lead this team to get a couple wins.
More wins, dude. You're
and
so right.
They're going to stay above that cutoff line.
I think so too.
That line.
I do too. The more I've just sort of watched what they have, they just have a lot of professional basketball players, like guys that would be on other really good teams' rotations. They don't have one of the top 20 guys in the league, but there's just not like many teams that are probably as deep as they are, especially towards the back end. The Knicks right behind them, they're in the 6th spot, Eric. They're playing some pretty good basketball. They've won 3 in a row, and Brunson, he has had a really nice year. Just about 24 points per game this year, 6.2 assists, shooting 41% from 3. And in his last 10 games, he's averaging 31.5 points per game. In the 22 games since the calendar flipped, he's averaging almost 30, 29.7, 5.6 assists, 4.3 rebounds. He's shooting 51% from the field and 46% from three over 22 games. Brunson has been awesome, man. And I'm not sure if you saw the video when somebody told Brunson that they traded for Josh Hart, and he was like so excited. It was pretty cool to see because those guys were buddies from college. They played all those years together, and somebody came up and showed Brunson on their phone. They said, "Hey, look, we traded for Josh Hart." And he said, "What?" Oh, and he like big smile. It was cool to him to see. And Josh Hart's a great fit for them. Randall has had a really nice bounce back year, almost 25 points a game, almost 11 rebounds. And Randall's shooting 34% from three on 8 attempts per game. They've been really good in the first half of games, but we're seeing some of the same problems last season in the second half. Not quite as bad in the third quarter, but it's still not good. And they're down in the second half of most games, but they're hanging on and they've been winning the games that are close. They just need a little bit more from Brunson, a little less Randall at the end. And I think they're starting to kind of find out that the formula there, because you don't want to tell Randall, "Hey, don't handle the ball at all. Just go stand down there in the dunker spot or in the corner." You want Randall to still be aggressive because that's what makes him unique. But last 3 minutes of the game, I think you just want Brunson making the decisions there because he's a really solid decision maker, Eric. And I think he's proving that series last year wasn't a fluke. If you put the ball in his hands a lot, he is a smart basketball player. He's not flashy. He knows where to get to his spots. He cuts angles very well. He turns the corner well. He's just a good basketball player. He continues to impress me.
Yeah, he's been great. And I think, like you mentioned, Josh Hart, since going there 3 games, 17 points in 26 minutes, shooting 64% from three, averaging three threes per game. We just can't underestimate what Josh Hart is doing. Thibodeau has always wanted this kid, and he finally got him. My issue,
he's one of my favorite players in the league, Josh Hart. I loved him on the Lakers, and he does everything that you want a player on your team to do. Smart. He can guard multiple positions on defense. He doesn't make stupid decisions. He'll hit threes. Josh Hart is an awesome finisher at the rim too. Like, he takes contact and he always finishes tough layups down there. I loved him, man. I was so bummed when he left for the Lakers because he's just the type of guy that every NBA contender wants. You want 2 or 3 Josh Harts on your team that can be like your starter, and then another guy like that to be like your 7th man off the bench, your second guy off the bench. Love the dude.
And the big thing, my big thing is, you mentioned the Knicks. First of all, Knicks best ATS record for the first half, but their interior defense has been putrid since Mitchell Robinson got hurt. I don't know off the top of my head when he's coming back, but this is going to be a weakness of a team moving forward. And I could see them dip below this line and be caught by one of the teams we're going to be talking about shortly.
Let's keep rolling, Eric. We're up to the Heat. Some injuries recently: Hero, Lowry, and Oladipo. Bam has been awesome as of late for the Heat. They are currently in that 7th spot right now. Bam's been averaging 23 points, 9.5 rebounds, 4.2 assists so far in February. They play way too many close games. So here's a crazy number. This was from The Athletic, and I was reading an article. In a full 82-game season, the most games that were considered clutch games, like close games, was Sacramento. In 2018, they had 49 of them. So last year, the Lakers, they had 47 of those games. Miami has already played 41 of them this year. They would be on pace to play 57 what were considered clutch games. And then what ends up happening is you're in so many close games, you inevitably lose some of them. They got to try to put their foot on the gas a little bit more. They do acquire Kevin Love. He's averaged career lows of 8.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 20 minutes per game in 41 games, almost all as a reserve. He hasn't played the last 12 for Cleveland, but they do need shooting. And they do just need a little bit of depth. It feels like whenever they get into series, they're just not as deep as whomever they're playing, but their ceiling is really high. They're a tough team to out, like we saw last year, even when they're banged up. Let's talk about the Heat.
Well, I mean, let's face it, the Heat are in a pickle right now. You mentioned Kevin Love. What does this do? Do you move Bam to the 4 now and have Love play the 5?
And then Love, you got to hide him on defense a little bit.
Yeah, because he isn't athletic enough to play on the defense. So to me, that really does nothing for them. In terms, Hero is starting, is at a big 3 now with Hero, Bam, and Butler.
If you have Hero and Glove on the court at the same time, those are two Midas defenders that teams can really attack.
Let's just call it what it is. And it's hard to criticize Pat Riley with what an great job he's done there, but him giving that contract to Duncan Robinson, and now he can't move that contract. This team is where it is, and you're wasting Jimmy Butler, who over the last couple of years has been one of the best clutch performers in the playoffs, all because of this Duncan Robinson contract. It's that cut and dry with this team. So I don't, you know what I mean? They're just kind of in this dead zone right now. You have someone like Butler, you have someone like Bam. I could see them make a push to the 6, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're right there at that 7, because there's one team we're going to get to that I actually did bet them to come out of this group and make the playoffs, but I'll save that.
And Miami, wouldn't be a fun team to get in a series with, because Butler raises his level of play and they're going to punch you and they're going to make it difficult for you. But yeah, I don't really like all the pieces right now. And I'm a little bit concerned, because if you have Love and Hero out there, then you sort of lose some of that defensive identity that you have. And we'll see if they can make it work in a short period of time. The Atlanta Hawks just fired their head coach, 4-6 in their last 10. They're only 1 game out of the 10th and final playoff spot. They're currently in the 8th spot. I mean, they just have not been able to make any progress from that Eastern Conference final run a couple years ago.
That was fluky.
It was. Guys got hurt. They got the right bounces. The Philly choked. That was the Simmons. That was when Simmons had the free throws and he couldn't shoot. He didn't shoot the ball in the 4th quarter. And it just shows you that.
But I mean, when you look at their roster in paper, and to me, this isn't a Nate McMillan thing. Nate McMillan, I think, is like the 17th or 18th winningest NBA coach ever. So, to me, it's not a Nate McMillan issue. It's a Trae Young issue.
Absolutely.
This guy, you ran Pierce out of town. You look at that roster, you got DeAndre Hunter, you have DeJounte Murray, you have Clint Capella. There is no way this team should have 30 losses right now. And to me, it just comes back to Trae Young, and just with I don't want to say the type of guy he is, but the lack of leadership, I guess, would be my point.
Absolutely.
Play a certain way, not getting people involved, and then
defensively, he's terrible. They're headed for the 4th bottom 10 finish defensively they've had in his first 5 years. But the difference is, last year they were number 2 offensively. This year, they're number 16 offensively. So you're bad on defense and you're just average on offense. This was a quote from The Athletic. It said, reason why I put this one down is because I know you and I sort of feel similar about Trae Young. I don't love him either. And I don't know how much you can win with him if he's your number 1 guy. I thought you might like this. It said, hope Hawks fans don't take this personally, but I am really sick of this team. They should be so much better than they are. I keep holding out for a turnaround this season. They keep sputtering in their attempts. They're not even fun anymore. What's going on with Trae Young? His stats are fine, but he doesn't seem to have the same impact he used to. They're bad without him, but they're not terribly good with him. I guess that's impact. They start and finish games poorly. They're okay in the middle of games. They're on the wrong side of coin flips when it comes to clutch situation. I just wish they played to their capabilities a lot more, because there's so much talent there.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically
pretty much sums it up for the Hawks there in the 8th spot. How about the Washington Wiz, currently in the 9th spot? They've won 6 of their last 10. They are 17-9 since a bad start this year where they were 11-20. Porzingis has played 50 games this year. He's averaging 22.8 points per game, 8.6 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.5 blocks. He's shooting 37% from three on 5.5 attempts per game. He is the absolute reason why they've been competitive and they're right around 500 because he's played in 50 games. My guy Kuzma, people used to laugh at me when I said Kuzma was the man. He's been really consistent this year. And the one thing I've loved about him, he's improved different parts of his game every year. He came into the league and he was just this like offensive guy who would try to light it up. And then he improved his rebounding. He improved his defense and now his playmaking. So every year in the offseason, he's gotten better. He's averaging 35 minutes a game, scoring 21.5 points, 7.6 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. He's got half a steal and half a block too. And he's shooting 34% from three on 7.5 attempts. So this team is at least kind of fun, and they've been playing pretty well for a good amount of time now.
They're fun. You have Beal, you have Porzingis. It's going to be interesting. Could they beat the Hawks? For sure. The Heat, maybe, in one of these one-and-done things. Oh, yeah, for sure. Easily.
Absolutely.
But that's basically it for them.
Yeah, I agree.
They do have some holes at some other positions. I am a little... I hate using the word blow it up, but you allegedly have 2 to 3 generational talents in this draft. If you're a team like the Wizards, why are you doing why didn't you blow it up and try to get in that lottery?
And then right behind them, it's the Toronto Raptors. Everybody said they were going to be sellers. They were not. They kept all this core. They brought back Poeltl, and they're not incredibly deep, but damn, they're like 6 or 7 is very good. They've got some flexibility. Siakam, Van Vliet, Gary Trent Jr., Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, and Poeltl now. I would not want to run into this team in a street fight, and I think this might be the team that you were talking about.
Yeah, I like this team. I bet them at plus 175 to make the playoffs. Part of the reason why is when you just kind of look at their last 5 games to get that push to kind of get up to that line where you only need to win 1 game, that 7 line. 2 games against the Hornets, tanking. God only knows the roster they're going to lay out. Then you have 2 games against the Celtics and 1 against the Bucks. And we both talk about seeding is really not that important for those guys. You know what I mean? So they have 5 easy games to close on. They have an easier schedule when you look at the teams that are in this clump. And then on top of that, the thing that they're doing now is you bringing Trent off the bench because everyone slide down. They were playing without a traditional big man. They had Siakam playing the center, Ed Kawanmore. I totally butchered that name.
Achuma, Precious.
Achuma playing the center, Siakam playing the 4. Siakam moves to the 3. That guy moves to the 4. Poeltl moves to the 5. Barnes moves to the off. Van Vliet stays at the point. Now you bring Trent off the bench. Everyone's playing their natural position. You're not going to get exposed more on the boards, and Poeltl's just as good defensively, so you're not missing a beat. I think this team is in a pretty good position, and that plus 165, plus 175 to make the playoffs, I absolutely love that bet.
Yeah, because what's really key for them is just getting to the 8, because then you only have to win 1 game, right? Yeah. So if you play them right now, they're only a game behind Atlanta where we stand right now. So if they can just get to the 8th spot, then they'll be in that 7-8 game. They win that game and you're in and you get the number 2. And then it doesn't matter if they get swept in the playoffs, just getting into the playoffs, like you said. And I agree. I think they're a really fun team that is going to be a tough out. So that was what, plus 175, 165?
I think I got it. I'll be honest. I think I got it at plus 185, plus 175, and I took a little bit at plus 155. So
awesome. And then the final 2 teams that are just kind of on the outside looking in, the Bulls have lost 6 in a row. We just heard about Lonzo Ball, which is just a bummer, man. He was playing good basketball, and he looked like he was starting to, improve and really figure things out. But this is a guy he's had some health issues. We've seen really good players through the years just not be able to get healthy. It's a bummer for them because when Lonzo was playing with them at the beginning of last year, they were fun. And you had Lonzo and Caruso to help put some defense in the backcourt. So it made things a little easier for, DeRozan and Levine. But overall, this team, they sort of feel like, they've lost 6 in a row, and then the Pacers behind them have lost 8 of the last 10 and 17 of the last 20. I don't know if either of these two teams is even going to really be trying to get into the play-in with the way things are going.
No, I was surprised the Bulls didn't sell. They have no real draft picks with the Vucevic trade. DeRozan does have some value. Pacers are building something. They're going to be a team that we look to invest in next year for the playoffs. Magic, kind of in the same boat. They're tanking. They're kind of, you know what I mean?
Magic, Charlotte, Detroit, and your Pistons.
The interesting move for me by the Pistons, they do have size with the kid Duran and Stewart, but neither one of those two guys are good rim protectors. When you trade for Wiseman, that kind of tells me that the Pistons think they're going to be in the playoff mix next year, because you do need that big defensive rim. And from what I'm hearing, Bay wanted to be the man, and everyone kind of knows in Detroit it's going to be Cade, or if they're able to win the sweepstakes for the French kid, it's going to be him. It's not going to be Bay. Bay's always going to be that third option on a good team, and he was just trying to do too much. So the trade makes sense for them.
Let's get over to the West. Eric, number 1 is Denver. They are 5 games up in the West. They are first in offensive rating. They have a plus 13.1 net rating in the first quarter of games. They just kick the crap out of you in the first quarter. And then they have a plus 19.5 rating in clutch games. By far number 1. They're actually so good in the clutch, they probably should have even a better record than they do. And Jokic, he's averaging a triple-double, 24.7, 11 points, 11.5 rebounds, and 10 assists. But it wasn't like a Westbrook triple-double. He's shooting 63% from the field and 39% from 3. And Denver is 21-0 when he has a triple-double in a game this year, which is just nuts. Jamal Murray has played 45 games, and Michael Porter Jr. has played 42. That is why this team is better than they were last year when they were already good. And we were talking about how they're winning games with Jokic and just nothing else. Reggie Jackson adds depth to the bench. Thomas Bryant can also give them 10 or 15 minutes when Jokic comes out. This is a good basketball team.
Real quick, I think 2 things with the Nuggets. My 2 points with them is, I think the best trade they made was they got the backup center. We've seen in years past they've really struggled.
And he's good offensively too. Like he can go for a few minutes and score you 3 or 4 buckets.
They were at their best when Mason Plumlee came in and played that role. And my thing about the Nuggets is this: they kind of remind me of the Bucks when the Bucks won a couple years ago. They just are big, thick people that are going to lean on you. And over a course of a 7-game series, that's going to be a lot of wear and tear, but they really haven't done it yet. No. But you look at it, okay, year 1 of this, Murray, Porter really wasn't Porter. It was in the bubble. Last year, there was no Porter. There was no Murray. This is the year. This is the year.
Everybody else in the West behind them has either questions or they made a bunch of moves and they're trying to get their pieces to fit. They are the team in the West that really doesn't have any excuses right now this year. Like this is, you're going to be the number 1 seed. You have a 5-game lead on everybody else. You can rest Jokic down the stretch so that way he doesn't have a ton of minutes on his legs. And, they're going to be tough. Memphis, I don't feel as good about them. It's the same group for the most part that last year that struggled to close out games. You have Ja, Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., Brooks, Clark, Tyus Jones, Steven Adams. I'm not sure ever what Brooks is going to do, positively or negatively. Like, he's the type of guy who could go punch someone in the face and, really impact your team in a negative way. And then come playoff time, we've seen that Adams, who's really good during the regular season, he gets played off the court sometimes in the playoffs. Jaren Jackson Jr., he's only averaging 27 minutes per game this year. A lot of that because of foul trouble. He's fouled out a few times already this year. They don't get into a lot of tight games because they're really dominant in the first 3 quarters. So if you look at their metrics, they're bad in the fourth quarter, and that's because they're pretty good early on. They worry me though, like middle of the road offense. And when things slow down in the playoffs in the clutch, the defense doesn't stay together. They need a better half court offense. Again, though, they have a guy like Ja who can carry them, but they went from being a team like 2 years ago that everybody loved and was rooting for. And now they've become a team that like people don't like anymore. They talk a lot of smack out there. And I think they pissed off some of the league.
I mean, you have a chip on your shoulder. It is what it is. Like, I just, how can I word this? But that's kind of who Dylan Brooks has been. Like,
oh yeah, he's been that. Yeah,
it's just how he's been. Morant really hasn't been that guy. So I mean, is that more of him just trying to be tough? I'll tell you the toughest dude on that team, the one dude you don't want to mess around with, and you mentioned him, is Steven Adams. That guy is the enforcer,
the Viking man.
The thing with them, and I guess it did come out that they did offer I think that they offered 4 first-round draft picks for Bridges because they wanted to get that elite wing defender.
Man, he would have been awesome
to guard Durant. They made a push for OG Anunoby as well, but they couldn't get anyone to pull the trigger. They did add Kennard, which does give them the bench some 3-point shooting. But in a playoff series, at the end of the day, you have to look at this roster. They don't have anybody that can stop Durant. It's just that simple. Like, with what they have, could they beat Denver in a series? Sure. Kings, sure. Clippers, sure. With how inconsistent George and Leonard's health is, Mavericks defensive liabilities with the guard situation. But when you have Durant, who's still a top 3 basketball player, and you look at this roster, they have no one that can just compete against him.
Yeah, so even just make it tough on him. Just size-wise, they're sort of in between. One of the biggest surprise teams of the year, Eric, is number 3, Sacramento Kings. They are second in offensive rating. They're actually the best fourth quarter team in basketball, which is crazy. Their clutch record it should be even better than it is because they win a lot of their close games. A couple all-stars on their team. De'Aaron Fox has been the best fourth quarter player in basketball this season. And by some metrics, it's him and Jokic. They will be where they're sitting right now. They're probably, a team that's going to get a home series right now. I don't know if they'll catch Memphis, but they're still, very live for a 3-4 seed here. Talk to us about Sacramento. What's their ceiling?
Come and go with Fox. I like the fact they didn't trade Mitchell. They kept Mitchell around. They could have moved Mitchell, the other guy back there. Herter can knock down some shots. Harrison Barnes, veteran who has won a title with the Warriors before. Great team. Mike Brown, kudos to him. Coaching at a very high level for them just to make the playoffs is a success. But you just kind of look at these teams in the West. Well, with Dallas's defensive inefficiencies, I think they could beat Dallas. But besides that, I don't know who they could beat.
The Clippers, they have bad net ratings in the first and second quarter. They're very good in the third, and they're just okay in the fourth. They don't focus a lot throughout an entire game. And this is something that we've seen with this group of guys. And I wonder if it has to do with the fact that their leaders are very stoic. Like Kawhi and Paul George are guys that aren't really emotional. And so you take your cues sometimes from these guys who don't show any emotion. Kawhi's played 29 games since December the 5th. He's never missed more than 1 game in a row since that stretch. 34 minutes per game, 24.2 points, 6.6 rebounds, 4.1 assists, and a steal and a half, 50% from the field, 40% from 3 on 4.7 attempts. They're 22-11 when he plays. They are the NBA's best offense and the 4th best defense with him on the court. They're 10-17 when he does not. Since December 31, he's driving more. Like, if you look at a lot of his numbers, second spectrum numbers, how fast he's moving, it's pretty good. And another point I like to make out, his top speed from any night this year was reached against the Lakers on January the 24th. I always point this out because everybody gets up for the Lakers. They did add Eric Gordon, Bones Highland, Mason Plumlee, but why the hell did you bring in Westbrook? Like, I don't know. Everybody does this with him. They think we're going to be the ones to change him. We're going to be different with him. And I guess if you just bring him in and it doesn't work, you just don't play him. But then you got a guy like Westbrook pouting in your locker room and on your bench that could just mess up all the energy. There's also that weird stuff with, remember, Kawhi and Russ were supposed to team up initially, and then Kawhi went behind his back and got Paul George to come out here instead. I wonder if that's a weird thing at all.
But they're not doing any moves without talking to Kawhi.
No, absolutely. Like Kawhi says yes to this, but he's one of those types of guys where it's like, if something goes weird, does Kawhi care, or does he just like whatever and just I don't know how much he cares about, honestly, about any of this crap. But damn, when they're 19-9 when Paul George and Kawhi are healthy, 23-11 when Kawhi's playing, you know what? They're a good basketball team. I just don't know how much I can trust them. They're still only 5-12 against teams that have a top 10 net rating. Only the Pistons and Rockets are worse and have a worse point differential in those matchups.
My thing with them is I don't trust Kawhi. I don't like his leadership. It's hard to trust. Hard to trust Paul George. Can Highland play the point guard? How is Russ going to fit into the mix? I do think they had one of the best pickups by getting Mason Plumlee. I think, as crazy as it sounds, I think Mason Plumlee is one of the most underrated players in the NBA with everything he brings.
Totally agree.
To it. But this is just, could they win it? Yes. Could they be out first round? Yes. This is a high floor, low ceiling, high ceiling, low floor team. Excuse me.
Now, these next two teams, I will just kind of put them together because they're sort of difficult to use a lot of what they've done throughout the year, because now they're going to look different. Like we can't really look at a lot of the Suns metrics without Durant because they're going to be a different team and they don't have Bridges and they are without a few of their role players. But they are currently in the fifth spot right now. And then the Mavericks, they're going to look like a totally different team with Kyrie and Luka. One thing that we will see with the Suns, they've actually won 11 of their last 15. When Durant gets on the court, it'll be Durant, Booker, CP3. And with those three guys, they're going to be really difficult to defend if they are healthy. They're not going to be that deep, though. Based on some of the trades they made, their bench is not incredible. They're going to be a good basketball team if they're healthy. The Mavericks are going to be incredible offensively and so much fun to watch, but damn, they're not going to be great defensively. And they're going to be way different than they were last year. They were number 7 defensive team last year in defensive efficiency. They're 24th right now, and they're going to get even worse.
So the thing with the Suns is everyone's talking about how hunky-dory it's going to be with Durant and Ayton and Paul and Booker. I mean, I don't know. I see a scenario. We have to face the reality of the situation. Durant has missed a boatload of games the last 2 years.
When's the last time at the end of the playoffs that Chris Paul has been healthy?
Yep. How is Booker going to, how can I say this?
Respond to not having the ball in his hands as much, right?
To having to defer.
Because he's always been the guy in Phoenix, right? He was their guy since they drafted him. He didn't leave. He chose to be loyal. They lured Chris Paul in, completely flipped it around when they were one of the worst franchises, and now they've had a good couple years. But now he's not going to be the guy with the ball in his hand. Oh, like if Durant's always going to be your option one, I think, for any team.
Yep, and we've seen Ayton and Monty Williams almost get in fights numerous times. So I just don't, you know what I mean? Like, as good as everyone plays this out to be, there's a scenario where this could just be an utter train wreck.
Yep.
So you got to keep that into consideration. In terms of the Mavericks, they're just going to be a nightmare defensively. Like, I just don't see how they're going to be able to get enough stops. And that's just another thing. How is that going to pan out with Luka and with Kyrie and with the ball? Now, the thing with Kyrie, and I will say this, you and I have both been hypocritical about Kyrie. There was a 2-week span with Brooklyn before he got traded where he's playing some of the best basketball I've seen him play. He was making people around him better. He was leading them, and they were winning games. Is that going to transcend or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? So I don't know. There's a lot of question marks there.
So that's 6 with Dallas. And yeah, question marks about both the 5 and the 6 as we get to the 7th on the west side. And that is the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion hurt again with a hamstring injury. He got hurt on January the 2nd. Another setback for them. They were the number 1 seed on December the 30th. They were 23-12. And then he got hurt and they have really struggled. They are under 500 in clutch situations, and when Zion and Ingram are healthy, they're good, but they've missed the both of them for big chunks of the season, and they're in a dogfight now. They do have one of the easier schedules left. That can be a little misleading sometimes, especially now that a lot of players have moved teams, so maybe some teams that were good aren't quite as good, but Pelicans are in the 7th spot, and Brandon Ingram is a very good playoff player, as we saw last year, because he's a really tough matchup. He can get that jump shot, at the free throw line pretty much whenever he wants it. So, they're a scary team if they're healthy. But again, do we trust that Zion is even going to be back in 2 weeks, 3 weeks at all this year, or be able to give them any meaningful playoff moments? If he shows up ready to play in a game that day, and you and I are talking about the game on BTV, well, yeah, maybe I'll think the Pelicans have a shot, but I got to see it with him too.
Exactly. This team has never really played this year with McCollum and Zion and BI. And until we see that, we really don't know what they're going to get. Zion has had numerous injury histories. Like you said, he can't get on the court. So it's really hard to back him. Fun team when everyone's out there. Electric team like we saw in the playoffs last year. Herb Jones, great wing defender. Alvarado off the bench. An interesting team, have some pieces, but
you need your stars.
Yeah, you need your dogs, and they don't have your dogs.
And there's 4 teams in the West, maybe 5, that we can have probably the same exact conversation about, like the Clippers, the Pelicans, the Suns, the Warriors, the Lakers. Who of those teams are going to have their best players healthy? Because if those teams have their best guys healthy and they're in a playoff series, well, those teams are going to be good, but we have to have the conversation about CP3 and Kevin Durant not being healthy, Kawhi and Paul George not always being healthy, Zion and Brandon Ingram not always being healthy, Steph Curry, again, right now, he has not been healthy and the Warriors haven't looked good, and absolutely for both AD and LeBron. So that's what makes it so interesting. Any one of those teams, those guys are out, they don't have a shot.
Agree 150%.
You can just cross that team out. But if any of those teams have their full complement of players, even all the way back to my team that we're going to talk about in a second, the Lakers, they would have a puncher's chance in a wide open West as we get to the 8th spot, the T-Wolves. So I think for them, they knew that they probably weren't going to be able to bring D'Angelo back and extend him. Towns has been hurt for a lot of this year. What they're doing now is what they should have done last year before they even made the Rudy Gobert trade. They should have just said, we're going to turn the keys over to Ant Edwards. We're going to let this guy be our guy, and we're going to build around him. And now they're trying to do the best that they can after the Gobert move, but I don't think this group they have is going to be great. I think they're going to be better off if they just decide to go Ant, Gobert, get rid of Cat, get something for Cat, or maybe you go Ant, Cat, get rid of Gobert, pick one of the big guys, get rid of the other one, and then start building around Ant moving forward. I wouldn't be surprised if this team, they're right in the mix. They're probably a play-in team. Nothing you could tell me in the next few weeks with them would really surprise me, though.
My thing is this. To me, the trade screamed from the GM, hey, I was right to sign Gobert. I'm trading for Mike Conley because Conley has worked with Gobert.
Yeah.
And I'm going to prove to everyone that this was the right trade. To me, that's all that screamed.
Try to get a little stubborn.
Yeah, I really think that was an awful trade. They gave up way too much. That's going to bite him in the ass. But I said this last year. This should be Edwards' team. And they're going to waste him. It's going to be interesting to see with A-Rod in the mix now. is he going to be enough to keep Edwards there, or is Edwards going to want out? I've heard, and you can already kind of tell from his body language, he isn't the happiest in Minnesota right now.
Yeah, they've alternated wins and losses in their last 10 games. Wins, loss, win, loss, win, loss. The T-Wolves currently in the 8th spot. Right behind them, the Golden State Warriors, they are in the 9th spot, and they have been honestly awful in the clutch this year. Even when Steph Curry's healthy, he hasn't shot that well. They have the 3rd worst offensive rating and the 3rd worst turnover rate in clutch games. They're good at the start of games. Second halves haven't been very good. They have not shown anything like a championship team in close games. Just picking one out against the Lakers recently. When the Lakers played without LeBron, they were in a close game when they didn't have Curry, and they did not execute well down the stretch. Curry, Draymond, Clay, Wiggins, and Looney has a plus 21 net rating, best among any unit that's played 150 or more minutes this season. But that's the only really good unit they have. When you have Jordan Poole in, it's still pretty good, but when Poole is in for Looney, I was gonna say he's not the same guy, and the defensive drop off. I know you're not a fan of his either, and I don't think he's
defensive drop off is absolutely insane. He does some of the most erotic stuff with the ball. You saw Steph Curry that one time when he was flipping out because Poole.
You said erotic, and I think you meant erratic, which is great because erratic, I was like, is he turning you on with that ball? He's turning you on out there with that ball, huh, Aaron?
British stuff in the world.
You're absolutely right. And he has more of those shots, where it's like the Damian Lillard shot that you're like, what the hell is he doing? Oh crap, Lillard made that. Poole takes way too many of those for a guy who hasn't earned them yet.
And he's not anywhere near as good as him.
That's the point. He's not Curry. He's not
going to be the Duncan Robinson thing that they overpaid for this guy in a couple years.
They just traded Wiseman. In the thing about them, where it looked just a year ago like, wow, everything's perfect for them. They've got this group of core guys, and now they've got this group of younger guys that are going to be able to transition perfectly. Well, think about this. Wiseman, they already traded him. Kuminga, he's in the rotation, but he's not much right now. Like, he's very inconsistent. And Moody is nothing. And those are guys that they were expecting to be a huge part of their rotation. The big statistical drop-off from last year, defense. They are 20th in defensive efficiency. Last year, they were 2nd. Are they going to be able to win 4 playoff series? It wasn't just because Curry goes off. They had a great defense last year, and they are not doing that at all. Now, all 6 trips to their final, they've been able to flip the switch. They haven't done that at all this year. I'm not really high on them, and what's going to be huge for them, they play the Lakers twice in the next week. And for both of those teams, those are massive games. Because if either team beats the other team twice, that the Lakers are done if they lose twice to the Warriors. But if the Lakers come in and beat Golden State twice without Steph, they are going to be in some serious trouble here, because the one thing we know is the Lakers are trying to get in. So the teams below them are still going to try to get ahead of them. I'm a little bit worried about Golden State right now.
Yeah, I'm rightfully so. Injuries, not mixing, chemistry issues with what happened in the offseason with Poole and Green. They were really counting on Wiseman to take a step forward, which never happened, hence why they traded him. So, I mean, I totally get it. I just, like you said, those games against the Lakers are going to kind of be hit or miss for them, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens if they don't make it.
The number 10 team right now is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, the Thunder, in the last 15 games, they're 6th in offensive rating and 11th in defensive rating. That's a 15-game sample size. This team is fun, man. They are fun. They battle in the first half. They're well coached. They make adjustments in the second half. They come out. They're awesome in the third quarter. They are the best third-quarter team in basketball, and it's not close. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he continues to move himself up the tiers in the NBA. This guy is awesome, and I don't think enough people talk about how good he is and how this team is a 500 team. That's a team that everybody just expected to be tanking again and be at the bottom, but they are fun. The night that LeBron breaks the record, they come right back out after LeBron gets awarded the greatest scorer of all time, and they just beat the crap out of the Lakers in the fourth quarter, which was a really cool for them. I don't know if they care so much, and every time the last few years they've shut these guys down, but they have so many picks, so many other teams' picks. I don't think dropping down 3 or 4 spots will hurt them. I do feel like they're going to be trying these last 20 games, and they're kind of fun and feisty.
I think, they want to get in. They need to teach these young guys how to win, how to play playoff basketball. You also have Chet Holmgren in the mix, and let's be honest, like everyone hypes up this NBA draft thing. Like I said, there's 3, maybe 4 players that are going to be good. Besides that, you got Holmgren, roll the dice, see what you got.
Thunder. Let's see if they can get in. And then below them, we have the Jazz, the Blazers, and the Lakers all trying to get into the playoffs. Do you think the Jazz are done now after the trades and they just want to drop because they've
they're going to drop. They're going to
drop.
They want to drop.
Yeah, they got more picks, and so I think they're going to keep dropping. Portland, with Dame, they're capable of beating anyone, but they're capable of losing to anyone. They play absolutely no defense at all. The only teams that are lower than them in defensive rating this year are Houston, Detroit, and San Antonio, and those are 3 tanking teams.
Yeah,
I can't trust them to. I don't know if they could go on a 5 or 6 game win streak in these last 20 games because defensively, are they going to get enough stops to not win one, lose one, win one, lose one?
Yep. That you just kind of hit the nail on the head right there. Are they going to be able to get enough stops defensively? And defense is poor, just to put it bluntly.
Then we get to the Lakers, which, man, I just wish this was the roster they had at the start of the year, because this is a versatile, fun team now. They did a really good job getting out from that Russell Westbrook trade. This is the Lakers team now. LeBron, Anthony Davis, D'Angelo Russell, Vanderbilt is awesome. Rui Hachimura, Malik Beasley, Dennis Schroeder, Reeves, Troy Brown Jr., Lonnie Walker Jr., Mo Bamba, Wenyen Gabriel, and Max Christie. I mean, they have 10 legitimate players, and they have 12 guys that I wouldn't be worried about putting out on an NBA court right now, and they can get versatile. For them, LeBron had said he is going to try to play all 23 of the final games remaining. If he does that, they have a chance. I think they have 3 or 4 back-to-backs. If he doesn't, they probably don't. But this team that they played, the team that was playing the other night for the first time, they played 1 game with everybody together. This is a good basketball team. And they would have been like a top 4 team in the West with a healthy team and this roster. You and I have talked a little bit about Anthony Davis. Rumors that he was not happy, that he wanted out, possible Dallas stuff. His body language wasn't great for about a week or so. He looked better in the last game, and just like his numbers offensively were better, and he was showing a little bit of emotion. I wonder if maybe like what you had said, he was pissed, all the stuff about LeBron, he kind of felt slighted. And then the trade deadline comes, and it comes to the point where now, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to sit and sulk, or are you going to at least just play for the rest of the games, play hard? And the Lakers look a little bit better now. I wonder, I have no idea, right? I'm just sort of talking this out with you. I wonder if he had been someone who had said, God, I don't know if I want to be on this team anymore moving forward. And now he looks around and goes, if LeBron has another year or two, and then we have guys like D'Angelo and Vanderbilt and like some solid role players, maybe this would be a place to stay. Who knows? Maybe he wants to go and play with Dallas and Luka, and we'll find out. You said you liked the move when the Lakers were able to do it initially. We've only seen this team play in like 1 game. What do you think about the roster now? And even if they had the greatest roster in the world, is it going to be enough time for them to gel? There are going to be some growing pains here and there. There are going to be times where you go to run a play and not everybody's on the same page. But damn, this is a much better fit of a roster than they've had the last 2 years with Russell Westbrook.
roster looks insanely better. But is there enough time to make everything happen? And the chef that stirs the pot is LeBron. Can you really trust him that he's going to play all those games? I mean, that's the stuff right there. It's just kind of, there's a lot of question marks in what they have to do and if they're going to be able to do it. Vanderbilt, elite defensively.
And what's nice about him, in just kind of what you were mentioning about what some teams have and what they don't have, the Lakers just have more options now. And like, again, they're in the 13th spot. So they still are 2 games out of the 10th spot. So they got some room, but they're only 3 games out of the 6th spot, right? So they have a lot of teams in front of them, but what's nice is they play Dallas, Minnesota, Golden State twice. So they actually play these teams that are right in front of them. They can win. Like, it is absolutely plausible for them to win 5 or 6 games in a row and put themselves into contention. It is absolutely plausible that LeBron gets hurt in a game or 2 and they're done. Or Anthony Davis. Either one of those guys, exactly like we said about the other teams. Those 2 need to be playing at close to MVP level, which we've seen them both play at this year, but they need to be doing it at the same time. They need to be kind of mentally on the same page. Lots of questions, lots of ifs, but Eric, I wouldn't have told you 2 or 3 weeks ago with the roster that they had, I felt that they had any chance at all. I legitimately think that the Lakers can finish like 9th. For me, what I want as a fan, I want them to get to the 8th spot. Because if you could get to the point where you just have 2 chances to win 1 game to get a series, like, I'll take that. Right? I'll sign up for that right now. You know, and then again, if they can get there, if you are, you know, Memphis and you're the number 2, like, you probably wouldn't love the Lakers in a series. Like, if, you know, like a healthy Lakers team, like that would not be a great matchup for Memphis, like a proven Lakers team that's had guys that have won. So, man, even if this was last year, Eric, where the trade deadline was like a week or 2 earlier and they had 5 more games, that would be nice. But there's just so little time right now. They have to have a 5 or 6 game win streak in this stretch here.
Looking at their schedule, I mean, they only have 5 games against teams that are in the quote unquote tanking group that I have. Yeah. So they schedule's a little too tough, but they do have games.
I like that it's
games against New Orleans.
Yeah, so those are the ones I like. I like that they can control their own destiny. It comes down to, I mean, if you're good enough to get into if you think you're good enough, these are games that you should be winning, most of them. You should be able to go 15-9 or 23 games. They should be able to go, you know, 14-9, I think. And if they can't, they don't deserve to be in. Plain and simple. Like, if you can't go a little bit better than 500, I just want, it's funny because I never felt this way with the Lakers before. Like, for the Lakers, I always want to win the title. But with this team, I would love for them to get a series and just, like, get these guys some big moments to gel together, because I'd love to run this team back next year. Like, I think they have a fun team now, and they're really, like, well built. So, hey, as a fan, I feel a lot better, but timing. Is there going to be enough time for them to put it all together and to try to make a run? They have a way better three-point shooting team now. D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Rui, and Mo Bamba all shoot over 36% from 3 and over the last 2 years combined, and they shoot way higher clip. So now you've got D'Angelo, Beasley, Rui, Mo Bamba, Lonnie Walker, Austin Reeves, Troy Brown Jr., and Schroeder, who all shoot over 34% from 3. And, like, they're just a basketball team. But is there enough time? Is there enough time? Eric, you and I will be talking NBA every Wednesday and Sunday. As you and I are talking Wednesday night, there were no games because we're just coming off the All-Star break. But we will have 2 shows for Better Than Vegas every week at BTV Bets. And then you'll join me once a week here on our show, and we'll kind of talk about what happened over the last week and then preview a little bit ahead in the NBA season. You and I also talk college basketball over at BTV Bets on Saturday morning. So some of the teams, just to kind of give us a little recap and put a bow on it, You thought maybe Philly was a team that you would look to. You played Toronto to make the playoffs. And was there anything else that you were maybe thinking about throwing a future in on?
I took the Bucks when they're 8-1 earlier. Sure. With Giannis going out, maybe he's out a little bit more. But you just need to remember that they're not going to have to play a meaningful game until May, April. So you have a lot of time for them. So I wouldn't. If you get the Bucks at over 5-1, I'd look into that.
Eric, buddy, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. We went a little longer than I had said initially. I think it was mainly because it was kind of our first real NBA talk in a while, and we were kind of getting through most of the teams. So our weekly episodes and segments probably be a little shorter than this one, but appreciate all the help as always. What else do you have coming up this weekend that you want to tell us about? I just heard my buddy Caleb Keller from TVG on your show talking college basketball, and I spoke with Caleb, and he said, man, Eric's a sharp dude. He is locked in. He knows every player on every team. So he was very happy to talk with you.
Yeah, Caleb, great dude. We gave out like 3 bets each. The first bet LSU hit earlier tonight. Gave out a couple futures. Yeah, great dude. Him and I talked an hour. The horse racing bet that you gave out with Cajun, I forget the horse's name.
Cousin,
Cajun.
I think. Yeah.
Cousin Cajun.
Nice
4-1 winner.
Yeah.
XFL Jim and I are going to have a XFL segment and a NASCAR segment, and me and my buddy Nick are going to be diving into some early fantasy football talk. So yeah, looking forward to a big weekend of sports and everything.
Eric, buddy, you have a good weekend, and we'll be chatting with you. We won't actually have to do anything for the prop contest this weekend because Santa Anita canceled all their races. It's supposed to be really rainy here, so we'll pick back up with those next week. But I look forward to talking college with you on Saturday, NBA with you on Sunday. Make sure everyone to give Eric a follow at etoff21 on Twitter. Check out all the great content that he has. And thanks again, buddy. I'll be talking to you again real soon.
Sounds good. Talk soon, my friend.
Don't go anywhere, folks. Still a lot more to come on this episode of That